Okay, good afternoon or good morning to all the attendees here today. Welcome to Strongpoint's new and advanced features for NetSuite webinar. My name is Andrea Sorensen. I'm the head of marketing here at Strongpoint. Really excited to have all of you attendees here. I think people are slowly filtering in. Thank you so much for making time out of your undoubtedly busy day to attend. We're really excited that you can make it today. We're going to be very mindful of your time. We're going to stay on track. We figure we'll take about a half an hour to cover things. We've got a bit of a buffer there for questions, so which we're anxious to get from you. I guess we should probably get started. Let's just move forward to the agenda slide, and we'll just talk quickly about what we're going to cover today. The four key things that we want to review with you today are some new features we've come out with, some things that are coming down the pipeline very quickly. The first one we'll talk about advanced segregation of duties. We'll then go through agent financial controls. We'll move into something that's exciting, JIRA Integration. And then finally talk a little bit about a partnership we have with respect to Celigo and integrating NetSuite and Salesforce together. So on that note, I'd like to introduce our presenters. And we have Yasu Fujita, who is the founder and chief operating officer of Strongpoint. Really happy to have him here today to talk to everybody. And Nick Cano, who's the founder, also a founder, and our chief technology officer. So everybody's in great hands, and I would like to hand this over to Yasu.
All right, great. Thank you very much. So a couple of things that I'd like to talk about. Yeah, again, so happy to have you here. So we're actually launching two webinar series. So the first one is new and advanced features, use cases, right? So that you can start getting an understanding of how to deepen your use of Strongpoint and find out about new things that are coming out. The other thing is we're actually going to start running Strongpoint fundamentals training webinars. So that's essentially conducting webinars that are a mirror of our core implementation sessions. And really what that's for is if you want to implement capabilities that you haven't yet implemented, or you want to have new staff that have come on board, trained up, or you just need a refresher. We just want to make sure that people have easy access to the fundamental core capabilities and know where they can go to learn how to use them. And then as Andrea said, but I just want to reinforce this, we're going to have a poll at the end of this webinar and really want to know what you guys would like to hear about, because well, quite frankly, I don't know if you've done this kind of stuff before, but it is a pain to try to figure out what kind of topics you're going to put into webinars. And if people can actually say what it is that they want to hear, oh, so much easier. So if you're going to help us out that way, I would really appreciate it. So, and then we also have account managers who will also be reaching out to, on a regular basis, communicate with you. It's best practices, new features, also just letting you know about webinars, right? So we're really increasing our ability to keep in touch with our customers and find out how you're doing. Okay, so one concept that I want to introduce is as we've been expanding the scope of what we do and the capabilities based on our customers' feedback, we kind of reorganize how we talk about what Strongpoint does, right? So really we're turning into this GRC platform. So as I go down the rows, right, we've got our ITGC system configuration tracking. And so that's really kind of the core change management that most of you are familiar with. We are also launching a beta version of segregation of duties, which I'll talk about, which right, it reduces the risk of fraud by ensuring that people do not have combinations of permissions that give them control over multiple phases of a transaction or operation. And then we have at the very bottom, agent detective financial controls. And so this looks at changes to data and transactions, right? Because the top row is really just about the configuration, like if you're changing a safe search or something. But the other side, the whole other side of the account is the data. And as you go across the columns, the first column is where most people get started. It's just pure documentation. But at the same time, you're pretty much done with this, as you guys know, after the first week or two of implementation, once the spider's up and running, right? So you have complete documentation of all of changes, of everything, all the customizations in your account. The next phase is monitor, and monitor is also incredibly important. But also very easy to set up as well. So, if you've got change management, the system is automatically logging, and then once we set up your policy, it's segregating the risks or the changes by the risk level, right? Scripted objects and changes, we're going to flag as non-compliant, whereas if it's just a search or report that's on its own, lower risk, right? Now for monitor, as you go down, for segregation of duties, we have out-of-the-box but customizable rules that track violations. And again, I'll be showing those to you. And then on the agent detective financial controls, we also have out-of-the-box customizable financial controls. And then when you move to the right, now we have this capability. We're able to defend the account, right? So when it comes to the system configuration, that's where the change request and the impact analysis really help. And the environment comparison, right, enables you to identify, make sure you don't do anything that's really going to break the account. But because our segregation of duties and our agent financial controls are actually integrated right into NetSuite, you can actually start blocking things. So you can block high-risk role assignments without pre-approvals, and then you can also block high-risk changes to data and transactions without pre-approval. So as I start talking to you about segregation and agent financial controls, I just wanted you to understand that there's a spectrum, right? There's like a super easy, out-of-the-box kind of thing that you can do that gets you covered. That, you know, a lot of our customers, especially in our beta program, are like, yeah, it's way better than anything we had before, and it's automatic, and we love it. This is great for now. Then maybe we want to customize it later on. One thing to note is that we use a common methodology across all of those rows. So there's continuous detection and logging. So whether it's an SoD violation or a financial controls violation or someone changing an object, these things are being tracked on an ongoing basis. And then we report those kinds of changes by risk, because you don't want to have one giant massive report with everything that's going on in the system. Just like, as you guys know, like we segment out changes to scripts versus a change to a report or a search. And so they're all pretty much broken out into, you know, compliant, pre-approved type issues, open non-compliant ones, and resolved. So from an audit and reporting perspective, very straightforward. And then the other thing that's great about this is they all have pre-approval functionality using the exact same change request. So you don't need to have lots of different tools and learn lots of different things in order to use this functionality. So let me dive into it a little bit deeper now. So our advanced segregation duty, again, it's built right into NetSuite, and we have two major different kinds of rules. One is access-based rules. So they essentially say, look, I want to know anytime someone gets assigned as an administrator or full access, right? Or they're able to, they become a system administrator. Like these are huge deals, as you guys know, right? Very powerful roles. So that's the kind of thing that we want to be careful about. And then there's the next level is permission-based one. So we can say, look, there are certain permission combinations that enable people to have too much scope over transactions and things like that we want to know what they are. And just again, to make it a little bit more real, here's some examples, right? So users who record cash sales, receipts should not be able to make or reconcile bank deposits and transfers. Users who write checks should not be able to create, edit vendor records, or perform bank reconciliations, and so on and so forth, right? So these are kind of the fundamental things that people should not be able to do. And what we have is reporting on it, right? So for the incidents, again, we have unresolved SoD incidents, resolved, employees. You can look at it by employee. You can look at it by rule violations. We have prepackaged audit reports, and then you can also look at the change requests, and then you can also assign. If you start getting large numbers of segregation of duty rules and financial controls, you can actually organize them in the account by process and by risk, right? So essentially, you want to say, look, what are our material risks, and what are the SoD rules and the agent financial controls that we're using to manage those. And so it's really nice and organized, and when you're reviewing it, it's all set up in a way that's easy to understand. So let me just jump into the system. Again, we really just want to give you a preview today. So let's see. So this is our rule library, and I realize it's probably too small for you to see, but we've got about 40 of them. And if I open one of these up, this is what it looks like. So this is our cash management rule, and we have a description. Users who record cash sales and receipts should not be able to reconcile bank deposits and transfers. And very easy to set up. You just set up your base permission, right? And these also come out of the box, out of the library. So you can just use these, or you can also modify them. And then here's the permission, and here are the conflicting permissions. And so if any role or if any user has a combination of roles that break these rules, you will get a violation. And what that looks like is the following. Again, so I've got Bob Fujita here, no relation, who is an employee. And right now you can see the SoD status is clear. So now if I edit this and I give Mr. Bob here a role that we use for our testing, and I add it and I save it, and I wait a second, it will say, hey, you know what? this rule is being violated. Do you want to go ahead? And I say, okay. Right. So it warns me before I make that change. And then once I make that change, it flags the employee record and saying, hey, this one has this particular violation. Right. If I wanted to, I can actually set these things up to block. So let's say assigning an administrator, I might want to block that without if I don't have a pre-approved change request. And the change log, these things show up under these unresolved SoD incidents. And the change log itself is super easy to understand, right? So I see the rule that was violated, the description, what role it was. I can see the affected employee. I can see who did it, right? So everything I need to know about that. So that's a very fast, kind of quick overview of segregation of duties. And now I just want to jump into agent controls. So agent controls are detective controls that monitor your account, and they alert you when there are unauthorized, high-risk changes to the data in records or transactions, and not on the object configuration side of things. And they're simple and easy to manage. All you need to do is create, or actually use one of our objects from our library, and it's a saved search. Right. So again, one of the things that we run across a lot these days is auditors saying, look, we want to know all transactions created or modified by people in IT or super users or admin, right? Because if an admin goes, and even if they're not using the admin role, they start modifying transactions or data, that's potentially a dangerous thing. And then there's all sorts of anything you can actually detect with a safe search, you can create a control for. So deleted journal entries, customer master modification, chart of account modification. And what that looks like in the system is we have all these pre-built, commonly used controls that people would want on their financial records. And when it gets violated, we have, again, all the reporting, but the change log itself looks like is, again, very straightforward. I can see what financial control is violated. I can see the change overview actually clearly tells me the terms on 3M were changed by Farouk. And I can see that what he did was on this date, he changed it from net 60. I can see it from net 60 to 2% 10 net 30. And I can see that it was Farouk, and he did it as an administrator. So, so the reason why these things work hand in glove is that segregation of duty and just permissions-based segregation of duties is really not sufficient to protect your account, just because of the way NetSuite permissions work. And quite frankly, some people have small teams. You can't actually split up the permissions that way. So the detective controls come in and also supplement, and will let you know if things are happening that shouldn't be happening. So I realize it was, that's very fast. The intention of this is just to give you a quick intro, and if you have additional questions, please feel free to follow up or ask questions. And what I'd like to do now is I'd like to hand it over to Nick, so he can talk about the JIRA integration and the Celigo integration.
So hi everybody, thanks for joining. I'm going to start talking about the JIRA integration. What is happening is several of you and several teams around the world use JIRA to manage their development process, to create issues, to track what they're doing and everything. But we still want, or we still need the power of a Strongpoint to actually do all the change management and all the compliance and non-compliance and auditing and everything. So what we create is the ability to connect both worlds. So I can have my dev team or I can have my support team working with JIRA, but also when that particular change, when a particular change is applied into the NetSuite account, I will follow what a Strongpoint give us in all the change management without any extra effort, without need to worry about synchronizing systems and everything. So the JIRA integration will make it seamless. What are the benefits for this is maintain the data integration, integrity between two systems, make the process more efficient, prevent any kind of overload or any more administrative work, and the quicker turnaround for deployments. This means that I'm able to document everything that my team does in the regular way with the current process in JIRA. And then when I'm going to do the deployment, use the integration to pre-document what I'm supposed to do and make the change compliance and make the change safe use all the power of a Strongpoint to do the impact analysis and risk assessment before the change is happening. So I'm going to show you briefly how this works. So here we have with a JIRA issue, typically JIRA issue that in this case it says enable the priority classification for a particular lead. So my team work on JIRA, get all the description and everything, and then if I scroll a little bit down, I have here the connection that my JIRA is at this point already connected to my account, and I select what are the custom objects that are affected on this particular work. In this case, I'm going to affect one existing field that is the status, and I need to create a new custom object, in this case, a custom record. So from my JIRA issue, I'm able to update my NetSuite instance and generate a change request that is already in the system. It's already give me information about this came in from JIRA, and I can navigate back and forward with my external link. And it also shows the customization that are affected. So I'm using JIRA for development, I'm using JIRA for my dev team, and then I easily connect with the Strongpoint, generate the change request. And from there is a Strongpoint change management, as you already know, with all the power. So that's the JIRA integration that we have at this point. So now we are going to go over another integration that is quite interesting for sure. We are talking about the Celigo NetSuite integration for NetSuite and Salesforce, or for Salesforce or NetSuite and any other system. What we are talking about here is the fact that doing change management is already complex in only one system, with all the relationship between the objects and all the dependencies, and everything can happen in the wrong way if I do a change that I don't really know the impact. So imagine when we add another system. For example, in my company, I have Salesforce for certain marketing activities or lead generation, and then I have NetSuite as my ERP. And then I start having dependencies between them because I have an integration. For example, I get my leads information and push it into NetSuite for all the invoicing process and everything. So when I'm going to make a change, I need to have visibility of particular objects that are shared by both systems, or particular objects that have a dependency, so I don't break my own integration. What we did in partnership with Celigo is have a way to read all the information for that particular integrations. In this case, I'm showing Salesforce and NetSuite. It can be NetSuite against any other system, Salesforce against any other system, and being able to easily document all the objects, easily document the integration and dependencies between them, and also have all the risk warnings that we already have in our system. This can be viewed in any of both systems if it's have it installed in both. And from there, I can take a decision when I'm going to do a change or to plan new releases and deployments and everything. I'm going to show one of the views that we have. In this case, I am in the Salesforce side. I'm checking on a lead, which is on standard objects. I'm checking that the subscription procedure have a source that came in from another system, in this case, NetSuite. The ERD give me a very graphic way to identify that that particular object have an external system dependency. So if I navigate a little bit further, it's telling me that the source in this case, which is subscription ID, have an integration, and that integration have dependent fields, which is actually my subscription in the parent lead. So very fast, very clear, give me information about one field that seems to be completely innocuous, completely safe to modify. It's not, because I have an integration related to that particular field and all the impact that that may cause. Of course, this is integrating into the Strongpoint change management, so all the policies, all the change controls are applied. And with this, we solve the fact that my system is connected to other ones, and how to manage changes and how to calculate risk. Again, as Jesus says, this is fast. This is to give you a brief glimpse of what we are doing, and I get back to you, Jesus.
Okay, great. So again, just a quick overview, and just want to give people a taste so that you can start getting a sense of what's going on. I think actually, Nick, there's a question about where people can get the the JIRA integration?
Yeah, there's a couple of questions here. If you'd like, I can read them out. The first question asks about JIRA. So it says the comment is the JIRA integration looks fantastic. What kind of issue types in JIRA does Strongpoint hook into?
So that's the great thing about the integration. You can define whatever type of issue or whatever type of objects are you using in JIRA, and then says, these are my starting point in JIRA, for example, a ticket or a story or an epic or whatever are you using, and from there you integrate directly with the change request. We have the view that JIRA is highly customizable and every team in the world uses it differently. So we make it 100% flexible. So there is no particular type. There is no particular way. For example, you can use Kanban, you can use sprints, you can use epics, you can use everything, and then it gets connected, and you can use all the deployment tools related to that. That answered the question?
There is another question here. I'm not one of the JIRA admins. Is the JIRA integration an application that, do they download it from our site? How do they get it?
Yes, basically there is one piece that exists in Strongpoint that comes with the bundle itself, is the connector, and the other part is a package that you need to download in the application. I don't know exactly, if you are not an admin, you may still have the permissions to install the integration. And after that, you don't need to be an admin in any of both systems, just connected with one simple user, and the integration take care of the rest.
Okay, thanks, Nick.
Sorry that I didn't get back to the question about the download, because I see now that it says that, sorry, I mistyped the question. One thing that is important is the piece that it get download into the JIRA, it get download from the JIRA application storage. It's a native tool. It's easily to download. It's certified by JIRA that will not break anything. So it's a straightforward process, nothing complex or nothing that you need to download and somehow with an obscure procedure install in the JIRA. And it's available for JIRA as a service or JIRA on-premise.
Great, thank you. Thank you for that, Nick. For the Celigo integration, do we need to install your software on the NetSuite side or on the Salesforce side or both? Good question.
It's only need to be installed in one of the sites. So you can have it in both if you want it, but it needs to be installed in one of the sites. Like you can choose install on NetSuite or install on Salesforce. The criteria of which sites to choose is basically where is going to be your more complex system, or where you are going to do most of the updates, or where your dev team is working more. If it's going to work more on NetSuite, let's install on the one NetSuite side. If it's more on Salesforce, let's install on Salesforce side. If we are documented an integration that is not between NetSuite and Salesforce, is for example NetSuite and I don't know, another Oracle system, or NetSuite and HighJump, you of course need to install it in NetSuite, because we don't support any installation in other systems besides NetSuite and Salesforce. We have one last question. Sorry for interrupting you, Yasu, but
Great.
Let's make this happen. When it says JIRA app is available as a service, is what I was talking about, the fact that you can deploy JIRA in two ways in your organization. One is as a service. That is when you are in the cloud, in the JIRA cloud, and the other one is on premises, when JIRA gives you an Amazon instance, for example, and you have your own JIRA server there. So our application runs for both JIRA, let's call editions.
Okay, good. And also just to note that there's going to be additional integrations on our roadmap coming down the pipe. So we'll have additional webinars and announcements to let you know when we start integrating with other applications as well in similar ways. Okay. So again, thank you so much for attending.
Thank you everybody for your time. We know it's precious, so we really appreciate spending the last 30 minutes with you. Thank you.